Kirti, when did you come? Last night? Oh, okay. Oh, really? That's nice. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Yushmadasmat Pratyaya Gocharayoho विषय विषयिणोः तमः प्रकाशवत् विरुद्धस्वभावयोः इतरेतरभाव अनुपपत्तौ सिद्धायां तद्धर्माणामपि सुतराम् इतरेतरभाव अनुपपत्तिः इत्यतः अस्मत्प्रत्ययगोचरे विषयिणे चिदात्मके युष्मत्प्रत्ययगोचरस्य विषयस्य तद्धर्माणां च अध्यासः तद्विपर्ययेण विषयिणः तद्धर्माणां च विषये अध्यासः मिथ्या इति भवितुं युक्तम् तथापि अन्योन्यस्मिन् अन्योन्यात्मकताम् अन्योन्यधर्मांश्च अध्यस्य इतरेतर अविवेकेन अत्यन्तविविक्तयोः धर्मधर्मिणोः मिथ्याज्ञाननिमित्तः सत्यानृते मिथुनीकृत्य अहमिदं मम इदम् इति नैसर्गिकोऽयं लोकव्यवहारः. Yeah. So we have seen it up till almost the end of the second line. Ityataha. Till there we have seen it. So ityataha iti, if this is the case, what is the this? The fact that the subject and the object are what? They have nothing to do with one another. Nothing at all, nothing in common. Like even the lighter upper and the lit up. What do they have in common? Nothing. And then, so if this being the case, and so we saw how they are unalike. One is self-cognizant, the other one is an object of cognition, and one has to be lit up, and the other one is the lighter upper of that. So like this we have seen, the I has nothing to do with this cognition. The I cognition is automatic, self-evident, and the this cognition is dependent upon the I cognition to bring it to light. So ityataha, this being the case, then, still, even though this is the case, asmat pratyaya gochare vishayini, seventh case here, or with regard to asmat pratyaya gochara vishayin. So with regard to the subject, the I cognition, which is the Vishayin, which is the cognizer of all the objects, and with reference to that which is Chidatma, which has Chidatmakatvam. What is Chidatmakatvam? It is sentient. So he is bringing the Chit aspect here. It is sentient. Which means what? All the other things that it cognizes are insentient. So, everything that the Atma cognizes is inert. This is a very big thing. It's like a, bombshell here, which has to be understood. Everything that Atma cognizes, the I, whatever the I cognizes is inert. No, but what if I see you and I say, hello, so I'm cognizing you? No, I'm just cognizing the body. Suppose if I were to read your mind, I'm just objectifying the mind. Because the I in you and the I in I is the same one, only I. Okay? So what is being cognized or objectified is whatever is objectified, whatever is cognized is what? Inert. What is the opposite of inert? Ert. Yeah. Sentient. Atma is sentient. I am the only source of sentience. And everything else is insentient. So, that's why, look at this here. So, we have Asmat Pratyaya Gochare. So, in or with regard to the Asmat Pratyaya Gochara, with regard to that which is the I cognition, Vishayini, which is the cognizer of all objects, untouched by whatever it cognizes, Chidatmake, which is the source of or the nature of sentience, Yushmat Pratyaya Gocharasya Vishayasya. So, Yushmat Pratyaya means this cognition. So, the products of this cognition, which are what? Vishayas, objects, plus tad dharmanam cha, and their attributes, adhyāsa asti. Adhyāsa, actually first he says nasti, but then we have to see that this adhyasa is actually possible. First he says mithya iti bhavitum yuktam. So let us look at the whole sentence and then we'll come back and look at the intricacies. First let us look at the meaning. So he says that in the product, in the objects or products of I cognition, which is what are the products of I cognition? That which I call as this cognition, correct? So the this cognition is anything that I refer to by the word this is insentient. It is a Vishaya, it is an object, and then it is a product of this cognition. Whereas I am, self-evident. Vishayini, I am that to whom the objects, because of whom the objects come to light. That is Vishayin. And then Chidatmaka, that which is in the form of sentience. Sentience here is all knowledge. That all knowledgeable Atma, I, in whose presence everything comes to light. And then what? Then Vishayasya, and for those objects or their attributes, Adhyāsa, any kind of a superimposition. And then what? Tad viparyayena, and on the contrary side of it also, Vishayinaha tad dharmanamscha vishaye adhyāsa. So we look at it both ways. So it is impossible, Adi Shankara says, to have the Vishaya superimposed upon the Atma, because they are not alike at all. One is cognized and the Atma is the cognizer. So you cannot have the Vishaya Adhyasta on the I, which is the cognizer of the Vishaya, because of whom the Vishayas even come to light. And then, on the other side, on the other hand, neither can you have the Atma's attributes bleed onto or be confused for the Vishaya. Correct? Because what is the Atma? Satchidananda. Correct? Not that Sat, Chit and Ananda are attributes. But this is just to, go with the flow. So whatever they are not attributes, but more like indicatory words used to understand the I. Not because Atma is attributeless. No, it doesn't have any attributes to speak of. No attributes at all. What attributes are there? So, only tribute we can pay to the Atma. No attributes. And so therefore what? So in this Atma, which has no attributes, really speaking, but for the sake of understanding or argument, let us say the Atma is described by the words Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Sat, Chit, Ananda. Let us say that. So then there is no way that, let's say, infinite is an as though description of Atma or attribute of Atma. It's not really, but it's a description of Atma. So the infinitude does not of the Atma cannot be what? Cannot bleed on to the Vishayas, to the objects that are in themselves finite. So you cannot mistake a finite object to be infinite. And Atma is Amrita, another description, which for the sake of argument here we can take it as an as though attribute here. So if the, Amritam means what? Immortal. So similarly, anything that is subject to birth and death, does not take on what? The quality of immortality. Anything that is finite, that is subject to death, that is subject to an end, does not take on the attribute of the Atma, which is what? Free of any kind of endings. This is what he is saying. So this kind of a mutual mix-up is not possible at all. Any such mutual mix-up, and we'll talk about it in detail, but let us just sort of finish the words here. So this is the kind of a mix-up. So this mix-up, and the mix-up can be two ways. What are the two ways mix-up? I'll say it first in Sanskrit and then explain. First is Atmani Anatma Adhyāsa. Second, Anatmani Atma Adhyāsa. Both, he says, are not tenable. What is Atmani Anatma Adhyāsa? Atmani, in the Atma, Anatma cannot be superimposed. What is Anatma? Insentient. Anything that is insentient, anything that is not self-existent, anything that needs to be cognized, anything that is mithya, not the word mithya used here as in false, apahnuvarthe, no, anirvachyarthe, which is neither categorically established nor dismissed. So this is what Anatma is. So Atmani, in the Atma, Anatma cannot be projected or superimposed. Correct? Because what is Atma? It is Chidatma. It is all Prakasha Swarupa. It is Chit. Chit means what? It is sentient, all knowledge, existent. Not a whiff of sorrow, mortality, fear, tears. It is untouched by everything. And then on this Atma, you cannot superimpose, which is what? Any of the dharmas of the Vishaya objects, such as every object is insentient, every object is finite, every object is mortal, comes to an end. Every object needs to be lit up. It is not the Prakasha Swarupa, it's not the lighter upper of anything at all. Correct? So this is, so this is what Atmani, Anatma Adhyāsa Nasti, not possible. One kind of Adhyasa. Then, Anatmani, Atma Adhyasa. Then you take the opposite scenario. What is the opposite scenario? The opposite scenario is that in the Anatma means what? Objects. In the object, the subject cannot be superimposed. How can you superimpose the subject on the object? Like, for example, what is Atma? Sentient. So you take a rock, correct? You encounter a rock. The rock here is the Vishaya. And the rock is what? Sentient or insentient? Insentient. That's why it cannot say, I rock. Yeah, that's why it is rock. So therefore what? If it cannot say, I rock, that means it is insentient. So on this insentient object, here the example is rock. On this insentient rock, you cannot superimpose sentience. Even if you tried. How can the rock, if the rock is not moving, standing, singing, dancing, or talking, better yet. Because if the rock talked, it would have a lot to say. Yeah, it would put National Geographic to shame. It would say, first I was a tree. I was a forest. I was in this forest billions of years ago. I mean, the kinds of things they are finding out is amazing. And then now, I was, and in the Himalayas, they find all these rocks which have shells in them. The insignia of Lord Vishnu, Saligrama we say, and that is because that it was a seashore at that time. The shifting of the tectonic plates and the colliding of the land masses gave rise to the Himalayas, the mountains. And even then, even here, after so many billions of years, we find the history. So the rock, if it talks, will not stop talking. It will give the whole history of the universe. Yeah. So, but it doesn't do that. It doesn't take on the sentience of the Atma. And so both kinds of Adhyasa here is erroneous perception mix-up. So this Anyonya Adhyasa, this mutual superimposition of the Atma on the Anatma, of the attributes, quote-unquote, of the Atma on the Anatma, not possible. Otherwise, every rock will start talking. Every mic will start to talking. Or will perceive it at least, even if it doesn't start talking, will perceive it as though it is saying, I'm tired of mouthing the words of all the Swamis, I have a few things to say. I want to be a Vedanta teacher, I have done enough Shravanam. It will also start talking. Or will think that it is talking, but it is not. And neither can the objects be superimposed on the Atma, that is what? All light, all knowledge. And what are the objects? Inert, jada, and then what? Unable to, finite, inert, and not self-existent. So therefore what? And having a dependent existence. So both those kinds of, adhyasa or superimposition are what? Tad dharmanam cha adhyasa hai, tad viparyayena. So we are seeing both the, both the ways. Viparyayena means in the form of the opposite way. Itham bhave tritiya. So in the form of the opposite way also, if we look at it, Vishayinaha, in the Vishaya, then in the Vishayin, Vishaya Adhyasa not possible. In the Vishaya, Vishayinaha Adhyasa, not possible. Both those Adhyasas are what? Mithya iti bhavitum yuktam. Yuktam means it is appropriate to state that these kinds of superimpositions are false or have no basis. And if this much is understood, we can go deeper here. We can see that this kind of a, when he says, mithya iti bhavitum yuktam, we can take it in two ways. We can take it that Adi Shankara is setting up this scenario of the impossibility of Adhyasa. Why? Because it is the truth. It is jnanam. The impossibility of Adhyasa or any kind of a superimposition or mix-up of the I is what makes moksha possible. Because if Adhyasa is real, if superimposition is real, and if I can easily mistake myself to be finite, and that finitude is real, and the mistake is real, then it cannot be removed. That means what? I am subject to sorrow. I am subject to strife. So like this, this is what, so he begins with a negation. And as I said, it is a Mangala Vachaka, Mangala Suchaka. It is a, what's the word for it? Indicator of auspiciousness for us, because he begins on a note of moksha. This is why moksha is possible. Please understand why it is put in this way. That is one explanation of why it is put in this particular way. Is put in this way through the negation of Adhyasa, first seeing the impossibility of Adhyasa, because that is the truth of Vedanta Shastra. Because the error, how can you make this error? This error is not even possible to happen. Because it is anishta, anishtatva, because we don't want this error, because if there is this error, then there is no moksha possible, then shastrasya anarthakyam, the uselessness of the shastra comes, and then second, what else comes? The Brahma Sutras themselves are useless, which this introduction is trying to, introduce and handle. Anirmoksha prasanga. Then third thing, moksha is not possible. And you know what else? Not only is moksha not possible through jnanam, we have to say. Jnana and moksha we cannot say, because what's the use of this jnana? If adhyasa is real, then what will your jnana do? Nothing. Leaving the field open to what? All kinds of people and matas, darshanas, views that claim, how? What do they claim? Come to me. I will give you moksha. How? I'll make you catch the toes. So moksha becomes open for options if adhyasa is real. This is something very, very important to see. And that's why he, puts it in this particular manner. Because if superimposition is real, then that means you can no longer say that by jnana, by knowledge alone, this superimposition is removed, because it is real. If it is a mistake, then it is removed by knowledge. Correct? But if this happens, if the fact that the Atma and Anatma can be mixed up, and then, that mix-up, even if there is a slightest possibility of it being real, then why should I come to your Vedanta and your moksha? I have my own moksha, Mokshantaram, another moksha I will give you, First I will give you moksha from listening to all these kinds of difficult texts. So, first you get moksha from that. Because no need to sit and listen to all these things and find out what is Vishaya, what is Vishayin, and learn Sanskrit and learn the chants and learn all these things. First I'll give you moksha from sitting, for 6 hours a day, from meditation to satsang and listening to all this. Then what? We'll do some, it depends on who is talking. If it is a Charvaka, Charvaka also has his own concept of moksha. Yeah. Who is Charvaka? A particular kind of a hedonist. Yeah, capitalist perhaps. So, it is, and the Charvaka means what's its name? The one who says. And what does the Charvaka say? The Charvaka says, you just, there is no karma. There is no karma phala. You are not accountable for your action. Eat, drink, be merry. Max out your credit card. No problem. Who will pay the debt? There is who is going to come back? Once the body is consigned to the flames, who is going to come back? In other words, dehoham, I'm as good as the body. But that's adhyasa. Don't go there. Just look at the Charvaka's view of moksha we are talking about. Don't go anywhere else. Dehoham, I'm as good as the body. And then so what? Body is gone, who is going to come back? And then so just have fun. And then, so what is Charvaka's concept of moksha? Eat, drink, be merry, have a bucket list, fulfill it, and then die. And then that's moksha. That is moksha for the Charvaka. And so the Charvaka can come into the picture and drag a few Vedantins out. Come to me, like Pied Piper, All the people go out. Half of the people go out. Then like this, so many other fellows can come. Nayayika can come, And then Vaisheshika can come. All these people, one by one, they can come. And then they can, harass you, because now suddenly all these paths to moksha are suddenly opened up. So, quote unquote paths. Before, we used 4 classes to establish that there is no other path to moksha. Jnanadeva moksha. Jnanan moksha, which we tried to establish. And now what? We are back to square one. With what? So many options. If Adhyasa is real. So therefore, Bhashyakara says, Mithya iti bhavitum yuktam. And Mithya means false, anritam, abhava. So this is not possible. So this is one way of looking at it, that the Bhashyakara, Adi Shankara, has a future plan about how to go about this and to stop all this nonsense about leaving up moksha for grabs or having a anirmoksha prasanga, a situation where moksha is not even possible, or a situation where moksha is contentious. Is a basis for contentions. Catch the nose, catch the toe, Sing some sad songs, you'll get moksha, Sad sang, yeah. And then what? And what else will give you moksha, Jump up and down, eat, stand on one leg, sadhana. This is for the serious people, yeah. Stand on one leg, you'll get moksha. Yeah, you'll get moksha from that leg, on which you are standing. If it can, it will run away by itself. So, like this, all these, various wrong notions about moksha, and, then, upayantara sadhyaha mokshaha, this kind of a thing comes into this thing. Upayantara means there is other upayas, upayantara sadhyaha. So, moksha becomes sadhya, something to be gained. How? Through various ways. Now suddenly the whole field is opened up again. So to stave off that is one explanation. Bhashyakara says what? This adhyasa, how is it possible? It is not possible. In fact, that is the reality. The reality is ultimately there is no adhyasa. This is one explanation. Or this is in the tradition, we can also take it as the first few lines that we have up till now read as what? As the Purva Pakshi speaking. Even before Bhashyakara can say something about it, the objector comes and puts a stay order There is no adhyasa, and therefore what? You cannot have a Adhyāsa-Bhāṣya. There is no adhyasa. And therefore your study of your Shastra is futile, useless. What are we going to get this out of the study of your Shastra other than a big headache? Nothing. And so what equips and if we are looking at the second instance and looking at it as the Bhashya beginning with the Purva Paksha, an opponent, an objector. The objector we can't take these objectors for granted. They have all studied the Shastra. Only thing is they have come to the wrong conclusions after study of the Shastra. That's all. But they all know. They know Sanskrit, they know how to parse the words, they know where to, they know what to, they know how to, understand this, but their understanding is flawed because they have not taken everything into consideration, or they don't have Shraddha. And most of the times, these objectors or Purva Pakshis are what? Are aspects of the psyche of the person who is studying Vedanta. And those aspects of the psyche, they don't come out as satsang questions. They are buried deep, and so the Shastra helps us out by coughing them up in the form of these entities, which we can biff. Because if somebody were to be told this is your inner fear that adhyasa is real and there is no moksha, it is your own pessimism. If somebody is told, then what happens? One gets defensive. One doesn't want to study anymore. What do you mean? It's one gets very upset and one gets protective. And so therefore what? You have this mythical figure of this objector. You have this kind of a Purva Pakshi. Like those, in the 70s there were these kind of dolls with sand underneath. These balloon dolls. And then the child would go biff. And then what would happen? After a while they would come right back up. Because it was round at the bottom and then weighted with sand and then filled with air. And you biff it and then it comes back. Same thing with the Purva Pakshi. All the wrong notions keep rearing their head. And then for the Dhridikaranam, for the Jnanam to be unshakable, we have to deal with it. And it's much safer to deal with it as an outsider rather to say that this is my own, these are possibly my own fears and my own wrong understandings. Nobody wants to be, put in the spotlight. And so therefore it is safe to look at it in the second instance as Purva Paksha. And what is this Purva Paksha? Purva Paksha here means your Adhyasa is not possible, sir. Because, let us go back to the conditions of Adhyasa. What are the conditions of Adhyasa? They should be two entities, correct? And you yourself, in your Vedanta, this is the Purva Pakshi talking, they are very irreverent, okay? And oftentimes rude. So, oh sir, revered sir, and this is all sarcastic. Oh revered sir, in your Vedanta, taught by you and in your works expounded by you, you keep dinning on my head every day that the only thing in the whole world is only one thing. And what is that one thing? Ekameva advitiyam. That one thing is Atma. And for Adhyasa, how many things need to be there? Hello? At least two things, correct? Two entities need to exist for that superimposition, confusion, erroneous perception to take place. Here Atma is only one, according to you. Then how do you say that there is a mistake or there is a superimposition? How can anything, what can superimpose upon the Atma? It is not possible. So this is the first objection, Because two things should be there. And then how many things are there? Atma is just one. You yourself say that. And therefore what? There cannot be any superimposition. To which, this is all in the Tika, to which the Vedantin delightfully says, For a change, I agree with you. This is what we mean by Mangala Suchaka. So, Adhyam, Tikakara says, Adhyam Ishtam. The first thing that you say is Ishtam. We also say that. We are not disagreeing with you. We also say that. We also say that the Atma being the only thing, you cannot, nothing can superimpose upon it. Even for rope snake superimposition, you have to have an existent rope and a a snake in the form of prior experiences, prior memory, etc. And then those two things should be there, an imagined snake and an existent rope. And here there's only one, existent Atma. And then the other imagined, what is there? And the two not being the same order of the reality. Just like rope and snake are the same order of reality. Here, that not being the case, we also agree. So, we don't even, disagree with the Purva Pakshi. And that surprises the Purva Pakshi. Yeah. So, the Adhyasa is untenable, we agree. We are also agreeing, So then, the second objection, which is hidden in this, whatever we have seen, is that Abhanadva. Abhanad means what? He says, the Purva Pakshi says, the Atma is what? Abhana, Abhanaha. Abhana means I don't see the Atma, which is the locus of superimposition. Because the Atma, like the rope, should be there, correct? The rope is, go back to rope snake. Rope is there, correct? Rope is perceivable. And then upon that I can imagine the snake or I see the snake. And so here you yourself say, the Purva Pakshi has an annoying habit of turning the tables, as it were, on the Vedantin. So you yourself said, Bho, O revered sir, you yourself say, is that, what do you say? That the Atma is not perceivable. Yattadadrekshamad agrahyam avarnam agotram apanipadam. Mundakopanishad. That which is not an object of sight, not an object of, any kind of pramana. You cannot objectify it, you cannot see the Atma, you cannot hear the Atma, Atma doesn't have some kind of a perfume that you can pick up as a smell. Atma cannot be touched. Atma cannot be inferred, because the nature of the inferrer, the content of the inferrer, the truth of the one who is operating the pramanas is Atma. So now, how can you tell me that on this Atma that is not even visible, something can be superimposed, like even the rope or the snake? So this is the second, hidden in this is the second argument. What is that argument? That the Atma is not, abhanat. It does not shine as existent as an object. It does not shine as an object. Abhanadva, second argument. To that, we say what? What are you talking about? In fact, for you to mount this objection, you should have been the all-knowing, Atma, Satchidananda Atma. Not only are you existent, but you are talking in a very annoying fashion. So, really speaking, that means what? The fact that you are able to talk, the fact that you are able to mount this objection itself shows that it's not that the Atma is what? Is non-existent or is not evident. It is evident. Right now, you what are you telling me? You're saying, I am telling you this. This is my mata. You're saying all this. Who is this I who is talking? And the Atma doesn't need a flashlight, to be made evident. Why? Because it is self-evident. In fact, it is self-evident, all-knowing, and so therefore, your argument, and what is your argument? that this whole thing is abhana, this for the adhyasa to take place, there should be something evident. Atma is not evident as an object, so therefore it is not a locus of superimposition. This is untenable. Why? Because Atma may not be evident as an object, but it is very much self-evident. Then hidden in this is one more objection. And where is that? Yeah, so this is there, There is no cause, akaranadva. Meaning, if the Atma is, let us say, okay, I agree with you, Atma is there, it is not there as an evident object, it is self-evident, all right, understood. Then there is no cause for adhyasa. What is the cause for superimposition? If the Atma is not even able to be objectified, if it is not an object, because the superimposition happens between two objects, and if there is only one thing, experience of adhyasa is there, bringing people to Vedanta. Why? Because people do say, aham dukkhi, I am sad, I am frightened, I am an idiot, I am unlovable. And all these things, I am not good enough. All these kinds of wrong understandings make one, run after Vedanta Shastra, because adhyasa, whether it is there or not there, objectively speaking, is very much subjectively experienced by the subject. By I. Yeah. Everyone, this adhyasa, he is going to say later on, is universally experienced. So then if it is experienced, then it has to be taken care of. Ajnana also objectively is not there, because in this chidatmake, atmani, in this atma which is full of chit, which is what? Which is all chit, all sentience. How can it have ajnanam? What is, how can it be the locus of ajnanam? But ajnanam is experienced. Erroneous perception is experienced. And that experience, later on he will say, is mithya. As we understand it, it is a dependent, reality. And it is a projection. And so therefore, because it is experienced, what does one have to do? That since that experience is an unpleasant experience, we have to add this also. So that karana, he says akarana, there is no karana. This is the karana. So first it is experienced. The superimposition of the mortal on the immortal, the superimposition of the finite on the infinite, and vice versa, is experienced in the everyday. Not only is it experienced, it is not a pleasant experience for the most part. So in other words, it is a shobhana, ashobhana, adhyasa. Ashobhana means what? Unpleasant experience. Like even the rope snake, unpleasant experience. That's why, you have to shine the light on the rope. And so, this is the third, contention. If this is a, injunction for the Adhyāsa-Bhāṣya to not continue, this is what, this is how the samadhana of the apeksha. Apeksha here means the, the expectancy that this will continue. So the samadhana has to be done of all the objections, and these three objections are taken care of in this particular way. First one, we welcome that objection, because he says adhyasa is untenable. We say, let's shake hands. Yes, adhyasa is not possible even for us. Anishtatvat, no problem at all. And then he says, Atma cannot be a locus of mistakes, because the Atma is not, an object. Hello, it is the subject. It is very much existent. That's what we say. It is the all-knowing, all-shining, the only source of existence, self. It is evident as you. And then finally, there is no cause for adhyasa. Yes, there is cause for adhyasa. There is no cause to study this, there is no cause to discuss this. There is cause to discuss this because there is unpleasant experiences which make people sad, angry, upset, questioning their lives, questioning their priorities. So ultimately, it is useful because, why? Karana is there. It is useful because people are, people are experiencing a sense of incompleteness, a sense of sorrow, a sense of bondage. Therefore, this bhashya should and must continue. So this is in the second instance of looking at it as a purva paksha. Okay. So then he says that, so then we have to discuss two kinds of adhyasa, which are referred to here, So first, I'll tell you where they are referred to. So, asmat pratyaya gochare vishayini chidatmake yushmat pratyaya gocharasya, and here we have to bring in the word adhyasa. That's the first type of adhyasa. What is the first type of adhyasa? The first type of adhyasa is the I being that in the I, this cognition is superimposed upon the I. And then tad viruddha, tad viparyayena, in the this cognition, in the object, the subject is superimposed, or in the subject, the object dharmas, object is superimposed. The object is mistaken for the subject in its entirety, or the subject is mistaken for the object in its entirety. This one, there is a name for this one. It is called Dharmi Adhyasa. Dharmi means the one who is the wielder of all attributes. So this is called Dharmi Adhyasa. And what is an example of that? Dharmi, like one thing being mistaken for another thing. Like for example, it is said that everybody has a kind of a twin floating around somewhere in the universe, and this is called doppelganger. And recently, one of the presidential candidates was somewhere in the Midwest, Minnesota, I think, where her doppelganger, who also lived in Minnesota, came dressed just like her. Who was this? Which candidate am I talking about? Warren, yes. So, Warren saw this woman, same kind of glasses, same build, same hairstyle, same kind of glasses which this senator wears, and same clothes, one kind of a little coat, light coat, pants, all these things. Same build, same similar height, and she came in front and stood. And what will Elizabeth Warren say, If you are on the public eye like that, you can't even look properly shocked. So, so she just said, I think we need to talk, And then the papers and the news outlets, published the photos. And then what happened, Then we had the side of the doppelganger herself, the one who was a Elizabeth Warren lookalike. What did she do? She said that she could not remain in those glasses and in that coat, even for a second. Why? Because the people were running after her, wanting autographs and not believing her. Even when they just harassed her. And she said, oh my God, I'm just an ordinary person. I just want an ordinary life. Just get away from me. And then she just, bundled up the coat and the glasses and took it all off and was left in peace relatively afterwards. So the fact that this lady, whatever her name was, Stephanie, I think. So the fact that the Stephanie was mistaken for Elizabeth in her entirety, this is an example of what? Dharmi Adhyasa. Now you can never forget. This is Dharmi Adhyasa. That one person is mistaken completely for the other person in their entirety. And then we can take this a step further. Like supposing you have a good relation. Let's say, supposing somebody has a wonderful relationship with their father. And, they love their father, and and maybe, this is what, they have a very nice relationship, and maybe the father has helped them a lot, and they have wonderful feelings about the father, and the opinion that the father is a very, very good person. Correct? And then later on, many years later, maybe whether the father is alive or not is not the issue here. Later on, they see somebody with the same kind of gait, nose, and glasses like the father had. Instinctively, they want to trust the person. Instinctively, they trust this other older gentleman because they have these warm feelings towards the father. And they say that, what is that? Here, they trust them. And then maybe say, why don't you take care of all my money? And that person happens to be not only non-father, but a con person. Correct? So this is dharmi adhyasa. Completely. Because there is some, memory, and we won't go into that right now, that will be taken care of later on. But because there is some, similarity of one person, and then the attributes, later on we'll see, but that person is mistaken for the other person. This is what is called dharmi adhyasa. Then there is another kind of adhyasa, tad dharmanam cha adhyasa, it is said. It is called dharma adhyasa. Dharmi adhyasa, doppelganger, and then dharma adhyasa. And dharma adhyasa means, I am deaf. This is an example of dharma adhyasa. Why? The dharma of deafness, the attribute of deafness is being superimposed upon the eye that is free of deafness. Understood? Yeah. Kanoham. I cannot see through one eye. Badhiroham. I am deaf. Krishoham. I am thin. Sthuloham. I am fat. These are all examples of dharma adhyasa. This is what the whole thing is. So dharma adhyasa and then dharmi adhyasa. Both these things have to be properly understood. And then there is one more kind of adhyasa. So while we are on the, types of adhyasa, there is one more kind of adhyasa that is discussed, which is called, samsarga adhyasa. Samsarga adhyasa means, erroneous perception or understanding due to some contact, samsarga, some association. Like what is the example here? The body-mind-sense complex, correct? Are in association with the Atma, so to speak. And the word association should be in heavy quotes, as though samsarga, because there cannot be real samsarga between satyam and mithya, between the person and the shadow, between subject and the object. So the as though association, because the Chaitanya is Deha Avachinna, it's as though conditioned. The Chaitanya, the Atma is as though conditioned by being in a body-mind-sense complex, and so therefore what? It starts to, what is that? The ahankara starts to own up the dharmas of the body, and the mind, and it joins the I. So the bodies of the dharma, the attributes of the body join the I, the attributes of the mind join the I. I am restless, I am hungry, I am angry, I am fat, I am thin, etc. So the examples are the same, but here this is another kind of a way of looking at this adhyasa. Some kind of a adhyasa, erroneous perception by an as though association. Then, if that much is understood, then, and one more example of the samsarga adhyasa is what? Blue pot. Blue pot. When you say blue pot, what is there? The blueness, which is a color, has joined as though the pot, there is a connection between the blueness and the pot, and so therefore you say blue pot. Tadatmyam is there. There is a kind of a identification based on some kind of a contact. So this is what is called samsarga adhyasa. So tad dharmanam api cha adhyasah. And then, tad viparyayena vishayinah dharmanamscha vishaya adhyasah mithya iti bhavitum yuktam. Okay. Further. Tathapi. Tathapi means therefore. Where did this therefore come from? There should be a yadyapi, even though, and that yadyapi should come right in the beginning. It is not there, but it is understood. We have to extrapolate yadyapi yushmat asmat pratyaya gocharayoho, etc., etc. Then tathapi. So even though this I cognition and this cognition have nothing in common and cannot be mistaken for one another, but still, tathapi means but still, anyonya asmin anyonyatmakatam. Anyonyasmin means anyasmin plus anyasmin. And why is this repeated? First anyasmin, anatma. Second anyasmin refers to atma. So, anatma and atma, anyonyasmin mutually, what happened? Anyonyatmakatam means what? They do take on each other's characteristics. Why? Because of Maya Shakti, etc. Aghatita Ghatana Patiyasi Maya. Because of the fact that there is Atma Ajnanam. And then what happens? So even though they are separate, there is some kind of a samsarga, there is some kind of an as though association possible, because of which mutually this kind of a superimposition, anyonya dharmamscha adhyasya. Adhyasya means what? Having superimposed the attributes of one on the other mutually. And what does it mean, having superimposed the attributes of one on the other? The attributes of Atma on Anatma, and then Anatma on Atma. How can you, what do you mean superimposing the attributes of Atma on Anatma? Like very simple. Atma is what? Self-existent. And any and Atma is forever. Ananta, limitless. But then the people take objects also and mistake them to be limitless. Like what? Like any object or a relationship or a person. This is what it is. This is the real thing. This is forever. So the satta, spurti and anantyam of Atma is often, the objects, are often mistaken to be infinite when they are finite. So this is one form of this, the Atma Dharma on, being mistaken, Atma Dharma being mistakenly seen in objects. The subject being superimposed upon the object as though. Because this is all as though. We have to permanently have the words as though written here somewhere on a banner. Because we get tired of saying it. So, anatmani atma adhyasa. This is what is anyonyasmin. And then atmani, and in the atma, which is prakasha swarupa, which is all light, all sentient. Then we have what? Atmani anatma adhyasa. I am dying, I am coming to an end, I don't love myself, this, that, all this. So both kinds of adhyasas are there, anyonyatmakatam, and then mithya-jnana nimittah. This we'll see tomorrow. So, avivekena, atyanta avivekena atyanta viviktayoho dharma dharminoho So it is avivekena. Avivekena means ajnanena, without knowing what is the subject, what is the object clearly. This mix-up is constantly being done. And then, he's going to say, Satyanrite, Mithuni Kritya, etc. We'll see that tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.